Chapter 1. Marina hurried down the street, past the long stretch of identical home units, the winter air needling her awake. Outside the open perimeter gate, a green YTF bus sat huffing its exhaust into the chilly morning. Marina quickened her pace, trying to zipper her coat between strides. An electric bell buzzed, and the tall grate shuddered, creaked, and began to inch its way closed. She broke into a run, waving her journey permit over her head and shouting at the blank-faced Stoff in the guardhouse. "I'm here! I'm here!" He didn't stop the gate. "Hold up! I'm right here!" The thin doors of the bus closed, and its hulking frame clunked into gear. Marina sprinted the last few steps, scooted sideways through the gate, and held her permit up for the Stoff to see. He stared at her with dead eyes and waved her through. The bus braked to a stop, the doors flapped open, and Marina climbed up the thick rubber steps. She pressed her hand into the digiprint, which flashed blue. The driver let her pass, and she headed down the aisle. Sitting in the front seats to her left were a couple of nukes, newly culled kids, whose parents had recently been convicted of crimes against the state. Marina knew what a joke the Collings were. All the big legal words: inherited guilt, associative responsibility, the Filial Internment Act, were just a bunch of lies made up by the Zero Tolerance Party. It was how the ZTs made it legal to arrest anyone for anything at all. Wrong color, wrong religion, wrong ideas. There were two nukes this month, and Marina nodded to them as she passed. A frightened-looking girl, about 14, clutched a clear plastic book bag, nodded back. The other, an older boy, looked at Marina quickly and then stared in front again. The red-headed, thin and freckled. He looked like he was trying to act cool, but Marina noticed his foot tapping nervously beneath the seat in front of him. She would have liked to sit with them and tell them it really wasn't that bad, that they'd get used to the things after a few months. She'd have liked to tell them which students at the youth training facility were safe and which were listeners, or who the nice instructors of public enlightenment were, or how to sneak out after curve and scavenge without getting caught. But she knew she couldn't take that chance. It was too hard to know whom to trust. It was easier not to trust anyone. Marina continued down the aisle. To her right, the JJ girls, Jennifer, Heather, and Michelle, stopped comparing the latest jewelry they'd scrounged and looked up. Marina turned her back to Jennifer's whispered insults and walked past her. Behind Jennifer, Frankie, pug-faced Poyer, stuck his ugly pus into the aisle. Marina pushed by him and smiled at Dex, who was at the back row, saving her a seat. Dex had been a part of her relocation group after they'd been culled from their homes and assigned to Spring Valley Redap community. Marina flopped beside Dex, barely keeping the required foot of distance between them. They touched hands quickly. "Hey," Dex whispered, ignoring the no-talking rule. Like a ventriloquist, he and almost everyone at YTF had learned to talk while barely moving their lips. "Hey," Marina whispered back, staring at the ceiling. "What's up?" "Nothing. Just my dad being a jerk again." The bus pulled away from the compound and gathered speed, skimming silently along what had once been country roads, winding through the lush farmland of Spring Valley. The farms were dead now, and the roads were flat black, asphalt cutting straight across the barren fields. Dex turned to Marina. "You get in okay last night?" "Yeah. What about you?" "Yeah." She wriggled out of her coat and leaning into Dex longer than she should have. He pressed back, and she knew he too was enjoying the stolen moment of closeness. "Wake me when we're there," he whispered. Marina smiled, wondering if he felt as safe as she did when they were together. She twisted around, looked out the back window, watching the vast tracts of ruined cropland spill out behind the bus. Whatever had once thrived in the rich soil of Spring Valley was long dead. Weeds, wilted dark from the coming cold, blanketed the wasteland, and black frost glinted under the early morning sun. Marina squinted at the odd beauty of it, wondering why the sun would even choose to rise on such a place as this. She tried to count the shadowy lines of old furrows ghosted beneath the weeds, but they flickered too fast. A tree, overlooked somehow in the ravaging, still stood in one field. Scattered around its trunk lay most of its leaves, blazing in autumn reds and crimson yellows. They looked almost fake. They were so beautiful, like someone had dumped out a box of paper cutouts. A few early flecks of snow flitted down. A faint image came to Marina, something she'd seen before. White. Something white. Just a glimpse, then gone. A snowman, she thought? No, no. It was moving. Clouds? She turned front, keeping an eye on the bus driver. She slid down in her seat. She snuck her hand into a hidden seam of her coat and eased out a small stapling of scrap paper she'd stolen from art class. Dex saw the paper and shook his head. He hadn't been sleeping at all. Marina tapped her eyebrow twice, signaling Dex to keep watch, and then leaned over as if to tie her shoe. She slid out the small stub of a pencil she'd hidden in the cuff of her pants, and staying low behind the seat back, started to write, but the image was no longer there. She looked out the window again. Sometimes she had to trick her memories into showing themselves, cold shoulder them a little. It came again. The doorbell's ringing. It won't stop. Footsteps on the porch. My mother, walking toward the front door. They're getting into the house. They have no faces, white heads, masked. It's okay, it's okay. It's kids, it's just kids. There's laughter, my mother's laugh. The little kids are dressed in white, dressed up like silly ghosts, holes cut out for eyes, goofy mouths drawn in magic marker. It's just kids. Marina laid her small binding of paper against her knee, pressed it flat, and wrote. I remember her arm above me, holding open the screen door. Her dress, a tiny flower print, yellow and blue. I remember the smell of cold in the wind. Outside, the sound of dry leaves blowing. It was a holiday we used to have, where kids played dress-up. I had candy in my hand that I passed out to children. Then they left, and my mother took me back inside the living room. I knelt at the coffee table. It had a thick glass top, and a different memory, an uninvited one that Marina knew well, cut in. Glass flashing white, bright, blinding white. Explosions, no sound, blood everywhere. She closed her eyes and tried to chase the images away. Still, she saw the blood. She focused the first memory again on her mother, the dress, the flower print. Keep writing, she told herself, trying to picture her mother's face, but all she could see was her hair. But she concentrated on her mother's hair. Beautiful hair, dark and long, pooling out on the glass top of our coffee table when she wrote. But on this day, the holiday, she wasn't writing. She was playing with me, cutting shapes of paper, orange paper. I had my own scissors, too, blue-handled and blunted. Marina put the pencil down, and the memory washed over her. Her mother unwrapping a new package of construction paper, clear plastic, the glint and crackle of cellophane, white glue on their fingers. She could smell the glue. She could hear the hollow flup-flup of the thick sheets of colored paper as her mother fanned them in the air. She could even feel the soft crunch the scissors made as she cut out crooked silhouettes of cats and bats, and, Hey, Dex, said, tapping Marina. Put that away, we're here. The memory vanished at his touch. Marina hid her paper inside her coat and stuffed the pencil stub back into her cuff. She felt better. Recalling things that had happened made her feel good, like she'd accomplished something. It was one thing the ZTs couldn't get their hands on. They had tried to erase everything or twist it into something it wasn't, but they couldn't touch what she kept inside. Whatever Marina could remember was hers. Everything of beauty, she thought, calling to her mind her mother's words. Every memory of something good is a form of resistance. The bus idled in place within the gates of the YTF, waiting for a security sweep. A pair of black jack boots clacked by, a staff inspecting the underside of the bus with a mirror attached to the end of a long silver shaft. Marina pressed her forehead against the cold window and couldn't help thinking how as a girl she'd heard of things like this happening to other people in other countries. She'd felt so safe then, so sorry for those poor people, in all those faraway places. Do they feel sorry for us now, she wondered? Is there a faraway little girl somewhere thinking, those poor people, or is she thinking, those people now, they know? An electric buzzer screeched the all-clear signal, and the bus eased through the security gate.